So, Jane, you and I have spoken in the past about how important it is to have a really supportive network of people around you when you are managing anything to do with your health. And this might be health professionals who seem like the obvious one, but it can also be just your friends and family or having a patient community. And I wondered in, your journey so far, how is it that you've chosen the right people? How is it that you know who are the right people to have around you and who are not the right people to have around you?
Interesting question. I think when you start looking into a healing process, it doesn't matter what you're dealing with, either your MEN1 or mine was a cancer diagnosis. I think you've got to do your research first. So my starting place was when I decided my natural healing route. I started using good old Google to find out health professionals that worked on the other side of conventional. And I know you and me have slightly different approaches, but they all intertwine with each other. So my research led me to the Gerson protocol, which is a cancer healing process on the alternative side. So that was my starting point. So I started researching everything I knew about that to see who the players were, where the protocol had come from, how long it had been established, what their success rates were, and things like that. So I actually contacted the institution to see if I could get a space on one of their training programs. I also, as a follow-on from that, realised I needed a fully qualified naturopathic doctor, so someone who was versed in conventional, but also on the other side of when we say non-conventional, it's not sort of, I don't know how you would say it, it's not particularly pharmaceutical led, although it can be, but it's looking at all the alternatives to create a holistic healing package, which is what I was looking for myself. So then I did a bit of research into that, and I found a holistic naturopathic doctor who actually worked along with my Gerson therapy. So that was good. And then I also looked into other health professionals on the circuit that were achieving the results and the aims that I had for myself. So that was my professional side. And then on my personal side, I told my family what was going on, and I told them actually quite straight that if they didn't support me in this, don't try and influence my decision, because I'd already made my decision up. Friends around, I found out very quickly who supported me and who didn't. And I have to say, those that didn't, I actually said, well, I don't want to interact with you right now, because for me, it was important to have a strong team, both on the medical side and also on my personal front, my friends, family, and people who are actually strong in my belief system and wanted to support me properly. So that was one of those were the key elements for me around that question.
Amazing. And you've sort of briefly covered it there. The next question I'm about to ask, because you said you made it quite clear to your friends and family how you were going to do things, and that they needed to understand that and support you in that. Perhaps maybe then in terms of medical professionals, let's say, or holistic professionals, anyone you worked with, in order to be able to convey what your needs and concerns were. Obviously, we know that communication is such an essential skill, and it's what a word that's thrown around. But actually, how do you communicate well? How do you think good communication happens in this area?
I think number one, you're not to be afraid of the professionals or the white coats, because there is a thing, white coat syndrome, and I think a lot of people get a bit intimidated by someone in a white coat because they know a lot about their specialized subject, but as I found, they might know about their specialized subject, but they don't know much outside of it. So they hone in on their speciality or their zone of genius. So for me, I thought it's very important to hold my ground and articulate what I wanted for myself and what part of what they offered I felt would serve me. And if the rest of it didn't serve me, then I would investigate and patch in around that level of expertise, because there were people I liked to work with, but they didn't necessarily have the whole package for me. So it was important for me to be very discerning and quite determined, actually, because I consulted with 8 consultants in 4 different countries about my treatment path, and in the end I followed the advice of 2 and patched in bits from some of the others, but not all of them. So I did a sort of clearing out process. So I did my research first, and I talked to people, and I saw how they thought, and those that were very direct against what I wanted to do, I ruled them out, because I don't think it's about having a fight with someone. It's about working very cohesively so that you have a nice, calm transition through your healing journey, rather than something that you're at odds with, because then that's not actually aiding yourself, because then you're anxious and stressed. So that's my process. But hold your ground and know what you want. I think that's quite key, how you envisage your own healing to be.
That's really powerful. I was just thinking, for a patient who maybe isn't used to necessarily feeling particularly involved in their healthcare, or perhaps they've sat outside on the margins and they've looked in and they've always felt a little bit passive, how could you encourage them maybe to become, more of a leader, I guess, in their team? What are the qualities or what are the behaviors you think someone needs to show in order to be seen as the leader in their healthcare team?
I think the first place starting is doing a little bit of research for yourself, so that you're a bit more familiar with what your prognosis is, and what the mainstream or norm treatment plans are, or if you're looking for something a bit more holistic, what other people are doing around that. So I think by reading other people's stories, what other people have done, it gives you a bit more confidence when you go into that arena, and then you feel that you can actually speak your truth to people. So we're not all sort of gung-ho about what we want, but I think you have to feel your way carefully. But when you're talking to one of your professionals, if you feel that what they're saying doesn't sit right with you, then you have a right to say, look, I don't understand that, or this isn't sitting with me, and what do you think about this? And just measure what their comments and replies are back to you, but try not to get flustered and just be very calm, because at the end of the day it's about you, not them. And I think that's very important.
It definitely is. I'm really glad that you've said that. I think it's very easy to see oneself as being not as superior or not as qualified or not as expert. And as we know, we really, really have to take the lead, I guess. What do you think perhaps is the benefit of doing something like this with like-minded people in a community where you have people who understand the behaviors that are necessary to create a team, where you have connections, you have a network, you have resources that you can use, versus, for example, trying to kind of do it all alone, go the lone route, be the kind of the lone ranger, I guess. What do you think, maybe looking back on your journey, is the value of having a like-minded community in this particular sense when you're building your team?
I think it's key, actually, because I think as human beings we're actually pack animals. We don't tend to be total loners. And for me, I belong to a lot of groups in alternative healing, especially around the cancer world, because there's always something you don't know. There's always something that someone's just one little comment or one recommendation or one supplement that you might not have heard of, that might be key in what you're missing in your own healthcare package. Then that's like light bulb moment. Oh, crikey. Then it's a bit like a rabbit hole. Someone will give you something. It's like DIM is something that they use with breast cancer, estrogen and lead one, and it's a byproduct of a cruciferous vegetable, but it actually stops, it kills cancer cells. So once you realize what it does and then how effective it is, then you start bringing it in. And then when you start looking at it, then you find lots of other things. Oh, yes, that does that does this. And I think that's the power of community, because as a whole, we know a lot more than us on our own. And I think you get the support, you get advice, and the support's a huge thing, especially when you're going through something and you're scared. It's good to talk to people who aren't the professionals, who can actually listen to you as a person and go, yes, I feel like that, I'm scared today, or I'm a bit anxious, or I'm nervous, or I'm fed up, I don't want to do this anymore. And I think that's a big one when you want to give up, which I think on any healing journey you do. If you've got a little group of people going, we don't give up, we're all here, I think that's really, really powerful.